Hello everyone, and welcome to another anime discussion seasonal video thingamajig that I will be doing today for the upcoming fall 2015 season. That is the official term for what these types of videos are. So we will be discussing, as I literally just said, a bunch of anime from the upcoming season. Not as much as I discussed last season, because I think there's just less coming out this season than there was last, which I think is normal. I think fall and winter tend to have less than spring and summer. I'm not quite sure why, but that's just how things are. So that's what we'll be discussing, or rather I'll be discussing. I mean, I guess you could discuss it too. I mean, you'd be talking to yourself, but that's okay, you could do that. Technically, I'm talking to myself right now, so it's okay, you're among friends. So to start things off, we're going to be talking about Seraph of the End Season 2, otherwise known as Seraph of the End, Battle in Nagoya. So, Seraph of the End was a pretty alright show, not the most amazing thing out there. But, it was above average. I don't think the, what's the right word? I don't think the term that people use for the show, that being Attack on Titan with vampires, is all that wrong. Because it kind of is Attack on Titan with vampires. But, it's alright. It's still, it's an action show. It's nothing all that amazing. It's not all that original, but it's still a decent way to spend 22 minutes. So I will be watching this, especially since it's probably going to get a broadcast dub, just like the first season did. So look forward to that, if you're a fan of broadcast dubs. Yeah, I mean, more of this is going to be fine. It's not going to be amazing. It's not, unless it's a complete upgrade in quality from the first season. But I'm not expecting much. But I'm not really thinking it's going to be bad or anything. I mean, I'm only watching this because I saw the first season, If you haven't seen the first season, I wouldn't really be saying you need to go watch it, because it's not really all that amazing, but it's not bad either. It's not a poor watch should you choose to endeavor it, but not necessarily something you need to go out and do. But if you did see the first season, come watch the second one. Why not? Next up, we have another sequel to a previous show, that being Noragami Aragoto, the second season of Noragami. I kind of want to say Noragami Arigato, because that's what it looks like. I don't know what Aragoto means. Probably has some important meaning related to Japanese gods and something or other. But Noragami was a pretty good show, a fairly good show. I don't think I liked it as much as most people did, but I still liked it. I still think it's a good show. The first season was kind of marred with problems concerning the character of Yukine, who was very, very angsty without going into spoilers, and a lot of the season deals with his angst, and it gets kind of annoying, and that was my biggest problem with the first season, that instead of focusing on more interesting things, so much of its time was devoted to Yukine being angsty. So that did get resolved in the first season. So unless they have some sort of reason to backtrack and make him annoying again, even though he developed and went through all that and dealt with it, then it should be over. We shouldn't have to see him being angsty anymore in the second season. At least I hope we won't. I do hope we get a bit more world building in this season. So that'd be pretty cool. Let's see. The second season is going to focus on Bishamon, who was around in the first season, but not like the main thing that got focused on. Does that make sense? She was around, she did stuff, but she wasn't like the big antagonist or anything like that. And I guess it's going to go into her past more so. The past between her and the main character, Yato. And yeah, that should be interesting. That actually does sound kind of interesting. So, yeah, I would also think this would get a broadcast dub, because the dub for the first season got released relatively recently. So, I would be surprised if they didn't give this a broadcast dub, along with Seraph of the End, and at least one more thing. Because they're at least going to do the 3 things for Wednesday nights. Because like this last season, they only did 3 shows. Outside of ones that they were continuing over from spring. They only did Gangsta, Prison School, and Sky Wizards Academy. So I don't know if they just had too much stuff on their plate to do more, because normally they do like 9 or 10 shows. So if they, even if they only do 3 again this season, I would think this and Seraph of the End are definitely going to be on there, along with something else that they license. But hopefully they do more, if they can. But yeah, Noragami. Next up is probably one of the big anime for this season. I would say this and one other thing are going to be like the 2 big things that people want to talk about a lot. But this, and we'll get to that right after this. But first we have One Punch Man. Probably, definitely the more hyped of the 2. Probably just because it was announced earlier. But this is an action comedy kind of anime. From what I understand, the source material, like, each chapter only has like a handful of words in it as far as dialogue. So I'm wondering how that'll translate over to anime. I wonder if they'll keep it like that, or if they'll like maybe, like, I don't know how long each chapter is. I don't know if it's just like a long chapter with just a little bit of dialogue, or if the chapters themselves are short. So maybe they'll just do a lot of chapters and they'll like catch up to wherever the manga is really quickly. But I don't know. It is very hyped, so definitely going to keep my eye on this. Probably going to watch. Yeah, actually, I think I have a plan to watch on my anime list. Yeah, I'm gonna watch this when it gets a dub, assuming things don't like. Assuming it doesn't turn out like crap. Basically, if it turns out like crap, then But I doubt that. Imagine if like the most hyped up show over the season turned out to be crap. That would be amusing. But yeah, One Punch Man. He's a man who takes people down with one punch. Every fight will end with him defeating people with one punch. Which that will be interesting to see. Fights that always end the same way, but are still interesting. Yeah, One Punch Man. Next up, the other most hyped up anime of the season. That, I mean, it's less hyped up just because it wasn't announced until much later. But it'll definitely be the other big one. That is Owarimonogatari, the next season in the Monogatari series. And this one will cover part of the Owarimonogatari, part of the, I guess it's a novel? Yeah, novels. Because the Monogatari final season novel consists of II Monogatari, which is already adapted into 4 episodes, Koyomi Monogatari, which has not been adapted yet, then Owarimonogatari, and then Zoku Owarimonogatari. So this will adapt like the first 2 volumes of Owarimonogatari, and then it seems like Shaft then wants to go and do Koyomi Monogatari, and then go back and do the rest of Owari, and then presumably Zoku Owari. So, because Shaft did say they want to adapt everything, so if they're planning to adapt everything, then they're going to have to follow that, and then eventually get around to doing Kizu Monogatari, which will probably end up being the last thing ever released, because I don't know why. I don't know why the first part of the story should be the last thing released, but whatever. So, yeah, Owarimonogatari, I believe this is only going to be 12 episodes. So, I wonder how long Monogatari is going to be at the end. Probably like at least 100. Because with this, it's going to be 77 in total, I think. And then they still got the rest of Owari, Owarizoku, or Zoku Owari, and then Koyomi. So, which maybe Koyomi Monogatari be OVAs, but I don't know how many. I don't know. I could easily see the Monogatari series in total being around 100 episodes once it's all done, which is kind of crazy, but and definitely off-putting to someone who hasn't gotten into it already. Hell, even the 65 that are out now was off-putting to me until I actually watched it. But yeah, I mean, I for the most part have a positive opinion of Monogatari. I'm definitely not as in love with it as most people are, mostly because of how it handles its fan service. Not simply because there's fan service, but because of the type of fan service that they have and what they do with it. That puts me off a lot. And you probably know what I'm talking about if you've seen Monogatari. But I did really like Monogatari's second season. So if this can keep that quality, then good. then I'll probably enjoy this quite a bit. I know this is going to focus on Ogi, who has been a bit of an enigma since she started showing up in second season. She seems to be the mastermind behind a lot of things. Well, she is the mastermind. Oh my god, I can't talk. She is the mastermind behind a number of things. So it'd be nice to see what exactly her intentions are, what's going on with her. So that'll be fun. Technically, this will probably be the only thing I'll definitely watch because, I mean, there's always the chance stuff like Seraph of the End and Noragami won't get broadcast dubs, in which case I'll wait for the dub to come out regularly, but they probably will. But this, considering Monogatari is not dubbed and will pretty much never ever be dubbed, at least not in the near future, unless Aniplex decides one day to go back and re-release everything dubbed, but I doubt they'll ever do that. This will be the only thing I will definitely be watching next season. The rest of this stuff, as usual, is stuff that I plan to watch or stuff that I will be keeping my eye on and may end up watching later on. But this definitely, probably Seraph of the End and Origami, assuming they get broadcast. Well, if they get broadcast dubs, I definitely will, and then whatever the other broadcast dub is, I may or may not check out, depending on whether it's good or not. So yeah. But this I'll definitely be watching, and hopefully it'll be up to the same caliber as Monogatari's second season. Next up, we have one of the two big mystery shows of this season. And I find it kind of interesting that both of these shows sound very similar. But the first one is A Corpse is Buried Under Sakurako's Feet. So let me read the synopsis here. Shotaro Tata Walkie, what the hell kind of name is that? Shotaro Tata Walkie, a high schooler living in Asahikawa City, Hokkaido, meets Sakurako Kujo, a bone-loving Ojo-san who has an ability to analyze specimen. Because of meeting her, he has to accompany her on various cases. He has to. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen too much talk about this, but it sounds like it could turn out pretty well. I would think, because the thing with a lot of mystery anime is they usually start out episodic and then evolve into something more overarching. And the problem I've had, and I think the best example of this gone wrong, is a show called Gosick. Because the thing with Gosick started off being very episodic, and it worked very well. Gosick was at its best when it was being episodic, and then when it tried to transition into its overarching plot, things just kind of fell apart. Because the plot tried to make itself feel as though it was so much more than what it was, and then when you finally, everything was revealed and you realized what the plot effectively boiled down to, it was kind of like, really? That's not really anything that I care about. So yeah, Gosick is not how I would hope that this gets handled. I hope that either this will stick to being episodic, in which case, it'll have other issues to deal with, or if it does transition into an overarching plot, that overarching plot is well done. Because naturally, you want your overarching plot to be well done. Should it choose to remain episodic throughout, it's just going to have to try and maintain some consistency. Because that's the general issue with episodic series. They have to be able to maintain a consistent quality throughout because there isn't a plot to advance things. Each episode, each individual story has to be interesting. And the problem with a lot of episodic series is that they aren't able to maintain that quality. They may have some amazing episodes out there, but then they'll probably have a lot of episodes that aren't that great, that are, if anything, boring. And you don't really want that. So, yeah. I don't really know what else to say about this. It's definitely very similar in synopsis to the other mystery show that I'll get to next. So I'm wondering how similar they'll end up being. But I'm definitely going to keep my eye on this one because it sounds interesting. And mystery, I do tend to like the idea of watching a mystery series as long as it handles itself well. So, yeah. Then, as I said, the next mystery series is The Perfect Insider, which I'll read the synopsis for this as well. The story of the original novel revolves around Sohei Saikawa, a member of the Saikawa Research Lab. On a vacation held for the lab, that's phrased a little weird. I guess the lab members go on vacation. He meets Moe Nishino Sono. Moe. You're really going to name her Moe? Oh, if she is not the most Moe thing ever, then there's a problem. The daughter of his mentor who joins the group on their vacation despite not being a part of the lab. Okay. After meeting each other, the two end up finding a corpse. And then the two work together to solve the mysteries of what becomes a serial murder case. So this, based on the synopsis, this already suggests an overarching plot. Unless the whole serial murder case thing is just going to be maybe like a small multi-part arc, and then it'll move on to more episodic things, or even maybe more multi-episode plots that are still overall episodic. Sort of like, I just can't think of a good example, but I'm thinking it may be episodic, but have multiple arcs to each episodic story, multiple episodes to each episodic story. Or the serial murder thing could be the main plot. And I do kind of hope this one has a main plot. Like, I don't want both of them to be episodic, like this and Sakurako to be episodic, because then they're a bit too similar. Like, if Sakurako is going to be more episodic, regardless of whether it stays that way or transitions into an overarching plot, I would hope that this one would be more plot-orientated. So, obviously this sounds very, very, very similar to Sakurako. You have a guy and a girl who meet up, and the first one doesn't necessarily involve them finding a corpse. Perfect Insider has them finding a corpse. Sakurako just has to deal with analyzing bones and specimens and stuff. But still, they sound very similar. So I'm hoping they won't be too similar and that there will be enough to differentiate them. But I would think that between the two, at least one will end up being good. What else? And naturally, I hope the serial murder case turns out well, and yeah. Okay, looking at the image for Moe, she looks kind of angry. She looks like someone who I wonder if she'll be like an emotionless doll character, maybe not really all that Moe. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I doubt she's named Moe because she's Moe, but I would expect the series to make some sort of joke about that. Because it wouldn't be anime if it didn't do that. So yeah, between those two, we've got some interesting mystery series coming up. And hopefully they will both turn out well and not like Gosick. And I say that knowing that Ghost Sick is actually a pretty popular series, but I of course had issues with it. Next up is an original by Bones by the name of Concrete Revolutio, or Revolutio, whatever. Concrete Revolutio, a superhuman fantasy. So, right off the bat, Bones original. So, even if it wasn't original, Bones. So Bones has this and Noragami. I wonder what else they have coming up. But Bones is the kind of series that can either do amazing things like Fullmetal Alchemist or Space Dandy or stuff like that, or it can do very questionable things like Eureka 7. So, let's see how this turns out. The synopsis is actually pretty long. The stage is set in another Japan. In quotations. I don't know why I deepened my voice here. But another Japan. As a banquet of diverse superhumans unfolds. In an imaginary age of gods. About 20 years after the war, Japan has grown and developed by leaps and bounds. What if all the superhumans ever written about in fictional stories existed at the same time? Superhumans who came into existence through different circumstances and who are special in different ways. Titans from outer space, life forms from a mystical world, phantoms and goblins from ancient times, cyborgs created by scientists, relics that rose out of the ruins of ancient civilizations, and the list goes on. One segment of these superhumans makes no secret of their existence and has gained popularity in society. Others cloak their identities and fight in secrecy. There are enemies of superhumans as well, organizations that operate in the shadows. The Japanese government has taken many measures to secure peace and order. One is the establishment of an organization under the Ministry of Health and Welfare, the Overpopulation Research Laboratory, aka the Superhuman Bureau. Their mission is to identify and approach superhumans, then oversee and safeguard them. One member of the Superhuman Bureau, Jiro Hitoyoshi, is protagonist of the series. So I presume he's the pink-haired dude in the front. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So, after reading that, the first thing that comes to mind is Blood Blockade Battlefront. As it sounds sort of similar, a world with a bunch of superhuman kind of things, though there. Here it's superhumans and Blood Blockade Battlefront, it's monsters and crap, but, I feel like this will be something that'll start out episodic and maybe become more overarching, I would think, because this sounds like each episode's going to be, okay, the Bureau's going to go and meet a new superhuman and do stuff with them, and it'll be like that, which could turn out to be very interesting, or at the least fun, because, once again, Blood Blockade Battlefront, it has that episodic kind of story to it, and it's not like the most amazing show out there, but it's fun, it's a good, fun show for what it is, and I would hope that at least this turns out that way, though hopefully, this one won't have its last episode delayed for God knows how long. But yeah, this does sound like it'll at least be somewhat fun, but depending on how they handle it, it could be problematic, so I'm going to keep my eye on it, but we'll have to see. What else we got? Next up is Lance and Masques. Masques spelled Masques, the fancy way. So the synopsis here is that a battle action novel series. This is a battle action novel series that revolves around Yotaro Hanafusa, a young man who is part of the last remaining order of knights in the 21st century. Knights of the world. As he fights as the mysterious Knight Lancer, he must hide his identity behind a mask. So, clearly, because we have a character named Lancer in this series, there's going to be a lot of suffering, because as part of the Ten Commandments of Anime decrees, all characters with lances, or named Lancer, must suffer. It's a sad rule, but we gotta follow it. All Lancers have to suffer. It has to happen. But yeah, I mean this is the one I'm probably the least interested in out of the ones I'm going to talk about. But I mean the main reason I'm drawn to this is because of the Lancer aspect. But Knights of the World, Masques. Oh, that all sounds pretty interesting, right? I think, and I could be wrong, but I think this is going to be a sort of like pseudo harem series, not in like the traditional, slice of life sense, but I think there's going to be a lot of female characters, and the main male Lancer dude is going to have to pick one, or though I don't think that'll be the main plot like it is for most harem series. This isn't listed as a harem. I don't think it'll be a harem necessarily, but it'll have harem elements. That's the best way to describe it. But I could be completely wrong on that. So this is licensed by Ponycan USA, and they already said with this show and a number of other ones like Sound Euphonium from Spring and a few other shows that if the shows did well enough, they would get dubs. So we can presume Sound Euphonium will probably get a dub because that show I know was very well received, and if this one does well, it should also. But yeah, gonna keep my eye on this, but we'll have to see what this show does because the synopsis isn't that long. There isn't a lot to really infer from it, but we'll see what direction it goes in. Because with any fantasy anime, it's fantasy can be interesting, but you got to do something with it. And the last series I will be discussing before we move on to movies is Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, the next mainline Gundam series that, based on the description, is not set in Universal Century. So this will be presumably completely standalone, so you won't need to watch anything else prior. You can just go right into this, which is very good because I feel like Gundam has too much of a tendency to kind of fall back on Universal Century when it can't think of something else to do, and that ends up kind of screwing with Universal Century more because it's always, okay, let's have more Universal Century, let's have more Universal Century, and it's like, but no, it was fine before, why are you adding more now? The story's too much. I mean, some Universal Century stuff, like some of the recent stuff is great, like Unicorn was fantastic. Completely fantastic. Origin is pretty good so far, and the second episode of Origin is going to come out this season as well. Stuff like that is fine, but I don't think we need any more big Universal Century series. And then, when you make Universal Century more and more complicated, it becomes more imposing, and people are less likely to get involved in it. Though, you could definitely argue it might not be worth getting involved in. But I'm not going to get into that debate. So, Iron-Blooded Orphans actually does sound pretty interesting. So, I'll read the synopsis. 300 years after the Calamity War's end, the powers which ruled the Earth sphere have been overthrown, giving way to new rulers of a new world, exhausted of battle. Meanwhile, far away on Mars, the sparks which threaten to ignite a new war have been struck. Our protagonist, Mikazuki August, a member of the private security firm Curise Guard Security, or Curise. I don't know what kind of pronunciation they'll go with. Takes on a mission as a bodyguard of Cordelia Aina Bernstein, a young girl who agitates for Curise's independence from Earth. So I guess Curise is either going to be like a colony on Mars or something like that, or maybe like a space colony. However, when the elite Gjallarhorn, that sounds more interesting, Gjallarhorn unit, charged with suppressing revolutionaries, raids CGS, its higher-ups deliberately use Mikazuki and the other boys as decoy to cover up their own retreat. So, those guys are assholes, and I guess that's where the orphan part of the title comes in. Orga Itsuka, leader of the boys' squad, takes this abandonment from the adults as motivation to launch a full-fledged coup d'etat, with orders from Orga to hold back Gachalahorn. Mikazuki... Gachalahorn! Mikazuki sorties in Calamity War. Sorties in Calamity War era scrap that... That's just a weird sentence. That CGS had been using as a generator. The Gundam Barbatos. So, yeah, that's where the orphan part of it comes from. So I guess this will be a multi-factional war, because you'll have whoever's leading the Earth Sphere, plus the CGS, plus these kids who were betrayed by the CGS and are trying to fight against them. So I guess at the least it'll be a three-front war. I think that's definitely a nice departure, I guess, from previous Gundams. At least in this, because we'll have a three-front aspect to it, and also, I mean, it's still similar, because you have a colony who wants independence from Earth, but at least our protagonists are sort of, because they're in like a third party now. They're not part of unless they're part of a third party that may try and take control of the CGS, but for the time being, they're not. They're not, Earth, and they're not the colony declaring independence. They're their own thing now that wants to launch a coup d'etat against the CGS. So, yeah. I do hope this gets a dub, because while Origin and Unicorn are getting dubs, I'm wondering if that's only because they're Universal Century. I mean, it's hard to say, because the other two, the other three recent Gundam series, full-on series, were Age, which everyone hated, Build Fighters, which is sort of like a toy commercial for things that aren't really... I don't even know if Gun Plus stuff is sold here at all, so there may just not be any real reason to dub a show like that. And then you have Reconquista, which everyone hated as well, so... As long as we don't have a repeat of that where everyone hates this show, hopefully this will be popular enough. Hopefully it'll get a dub, and hopefully we'll have another Gundam series that can be seen as standalone that actually is good. Because the big problem with most full-length Gundam series is that they are too long and they drag, and that dragginess often makes them very questionable shows. Because, what'll happen is they'll start off pretty alright, then they'll have, 20, 30 episodes of drag, and then, the final battle. And that's very annoying to watch. It's like Gundam series feel this need to be 50 episodes when they don't have the plot to sustain it. And thus they, fall back on a slow pace and a lot of episodic-y repeat stuff that isn't interesting. So hopefully either this will be only 20-something episodes. I think Reconquista was only 20-something, but regardless, that was trash. Either that, or I hope it'll be fast-paced enough that it'll be able to accommodate a large episode length, like Gundam 00. Gundam 00 was 50 episodes, and it was fast-paced, and it worked. It worked out brilliantly, and that's why, to me, it's the best Gundam series that I have watched. I mean, there's other reasons as well, but that's part of it. It didn't drag. Hell, it could have used even more episodes, honestly. So hopefully either this will be short enough that it doesn't ever need to drag, or it'll have enough plot and good enough writing that it can have a long run and not drag. Hopefully it can be fast-paced enough. So that's it for the series that I am going to discuss. I think I talked about 9 of them. The next 4, I guess I'll briefly go over OVAs. There's Gundam The Origin, number 2. There's some Kami-sama Kiss OVAs, some OVAs for Noragami, an OVA for The Disappearance of Yuki Nagato, Tokyo Ghoul OVA, I think there's a Seraph at the End OVA as well, stuff like that. But the rest of the stuff I'm going to talk about are our movies. 4 movies. First one, this one. So the first movie is Digimon Adventure Tri Part 1, Saikai. Whatever Saikai means. So Digimon Adventure Tri was delayed. It was originally going to be a series that was going to air in the spring season, and then that didn't happen. So it was going to be a series, and then that didn't happen for whatever reason. It got converted into 6 movies, I believe. The first one will be out in November, and the rest will come out at some point in the future. So this, of course, for nostalgia reasons, has a lot of people hyped up, and a lot of people concerned after the series ended up not happening and ended up being converted. But 6 movies is a lot, so we'll see how that turns out. Maybe it'll have even more content that way. I don't know. Maybe they just thought a series wouldn't do as well as movies or something. Clearly there was some problem. Maybe they just couldn't find a time for it to air, or who knows. But hopefully this will satisfy everyone's nostalgia. I kind of hope it gets a dub, mostly because Ty's voice actor, Joshua Seth, said he would return for Tai if he could, if it got a dub, because he retired from voice acting. I think he does magic now, so it would be nice to see him back for Tai. I really don't have too much to say for this. Hopefully it'll turn out well. Hopefully it'll satisfy everyone's nostalgia. I wonder if this... I don't know if this is a sequel to the first Digimon, or if it's a sequel to Digimon Adventure 2. I don't know if it's taking that into consideration or retconning it or what. I think most people would want it to retcon Adventure 2 because no one really liked Adventure 2. But we'll see. Tri would imply it doesn't, because Tri meaning 3. But who knows? They could just mean it's the third Digimon adventure, but it's not going to be the third it's not going to be third chronological. It'll ignore 02. Who knows? We will see. We will see. And the last thing I'll be talking about will be the 3 Project Ito movies that I don't know if they're all coming out at the same time. This first one, which is known as The Empire of Corpses, will be coming out October 2nd. Now, what I find is interesting is that this, as well as the other 2 Project Ito films that I'll discuss next, are all already licensed by Funimation. So all 3 of them will be getting some sort of release and dub, which is very nice. And they'll have a pretty interesting premise. I am looking forward to seeing how they all end up turning out. So let's talk about this one, The Empire of Corpses. So this story takes place in 19th century Europe and revolves around John Watson. He is scouted by the government to become a secret agent. However, Watson lives in a world where Frankensteins, aka human corpses that are repurposed with a false soul in order to use them as laborers, are used to improve industrial development. So, considering in the industrial age in the 19th century, you can see why people would want dead labor, basically. I think that's a pretty interesting premise. I think the other 2 are a bit more interesting, but, it should be interesting to see how a 19th century world is created in this movie, and also how exactly... I'm wondering if this Frankenstein thing... Because it says Watson lives in a world where that's how it is. Does that mean that everyone's aware of this and everyone is okay with... Or maybe not everyone's okay, but everyone acknowledges that's how things are. These Frankensteins exist and are being used for labor, or is it a secret thing, or is it something people are trying to do and he's investigating it? I would think it's something people are trying to do and he's investigating it and he's going to stop it from happening. But it could also be that it's something that already exists. Maybe the populace doesn't already know that they're made from dead corpses, or maybe there's something else going on that's negative and he's investigating that, and we'll find out that, and then we'll attempt to expose that. But yeah, lots of ways they could handle this. I am interested to see how that goes. But I do like the 19th century setting. So, yeah. Sounds interesting. Let's see. Let me get to the other two. Because my anime list doesn't like to fucking work for some reason. Crap, I got too far away. Hold on. Give me a second. Here we go. The next film, and these are all basically psychological sci-fi types of movies. So this one will be released on November 13th. And it is known as Genocidal Organ, which I think is that's probably the coolest name of the three of them. So the synopsis goes, as the war on terror exploded, literally, the day Sarajevo was destroyed by a homemade nuclear device. So that's kind of interesting, a homemade nuclear device. Like, how did someone pull that off? But, so that happens. The leading democracies transformed into total surveillance states, and the developing world has drowned under a wave of genocides. The mysterious American John Paul, aka most generic name ever, seems to be behind the collapse of the world system, and it's up to intelligence agent Clavis Shepard to track John Paul across the wreckage of civilizations and to find the true heart of darkness. A genocidal organ. Roll credits. So, I think this is the most interesting of the three. Partly because I think the name's cool, also because I like the whole political aspect of it. More so. I am kind of wondering how someone made a homemade nuclear device. But, and what exactly John Paul... Like, did John Paul make the nuclear device, or did he somehow, direct the democracies of the world turning into surveillance states? I'm wondering which it is, or what other type of role he might have had in this. But, yeah, I'm wondering if this will have a similar atmosphere to Psycho-Pass then, considering the surveillance aspect of it. I would expect it to be a pretty gruesome movie, considering, you know, the name has genocidal in it, and there's talk of there being multiple genocides throughout the world. So, yeah, I don't think this will be... I mean, I'm sure Empire of Corpses isn't going to be the prettiest thing out there either. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, but I don't know. This one really interests me because of that political aspect to it. Of course, if John Paul is being tracked by this Clavis Shepard guy, you have to wonder if he's just running away from Clavis, or if he actually has some sort of thing he's trying to get to. Like, is he trying to find the genocidal organ, or is Clavis trying to find it through him, or... I don't know, I'm just talking stuff. But yeah. I feel like I end every discussion about one of these things with an but yeah. I need more variety in how I talk. That is what I need. So the last movie, if I can get to it, the last movie in the Project Ito series is one by the name of Harmony. So this is coming out December 4th. And I should mention, all three of these are being done by different studios. Like, this is Studio 4 Degrees Celsius. I've never heard of them before. What have they done? Hold on. They did the Berserk movies, apparently. And Detroit Metal City. Detroit Metal City. Because that's a stunning piece of animation, piece of anything. And then Genocidal Organ was, I think, Manglobe. And then Empire of Corpses was Studio Wit. I could have gotten those two mixed up. I'm pretty sure that's how it is. But let me read the synopsis here. So, in the future, utopia has finally been achieved. right? Awesome. Finally did it. Thanks to medical nanotechnology and a powerful ethic of social welfare and mutual consideration. However, this perfect world isn't that perfect, though. Well, then it's not a utopia. You just screwed up. It doesn't work then. And 3 young girls stand up to totalitarian kindness and super medicine. Totalitarian kindness. That's a fun way to describe that. Okay. And super medicine by attempting suicide via starvation. It doesn't work, but one of the girls, Tuan Kyrie, grows up to be a member of the World Health Organization. As a crisis threatens the harmony of the world, so once again, clearly not a utopia if you still got stuff like that going on, Tuan rediscovers another member of her suicide pact. I can't talk, I apologize for that. And together, they must save the world, or the planet, from itself. So, I like that totalitarian kindness thing. So, yeah, so they don't like that it's totalitarian. And there's going to be a new crisis. So I'm wondering, like, what's the main thing they're going to be fighting against here? Is it the totalitarianism of the society? Or is it going to be whatever this new threat is? Or are they one and the same? So that's something to think about. Of course, this is pretty similar, at least in some respects, to Genocidal Organ, because you have that totalitarian aspect, but there it's very clearly presented as a negative thing. Here it seems pretty gray. Like, they don't agree with it, but it's totalitarianism that's working and making people happy. Like a peace through tyranny. So clearly the Decepticons would totally love this film. At least the real Decepticons. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't have much else to say aside from just reading the descriptions and thinking about what they could do with it. Like, I mean, the thing with all these movies is because they're psychological, I have to wonder how they're going to implement that psychological aspect. Like, is this going to cross into mindfuck territory like other psychological movies or shows do? Or is it going to actually, like, not be that crazy? Basically, is it going to actually be interesting, or is it going to be, LOL, let me throw a bunch of symbolism at you and have you try and figure out what the hell is going on? I hope it's not that. I hope none of these 3 movies turn out that way. The thing is, like, outside of describing the setting, these synopses are pretty vague. Which, I mean, I guess all synopses, there we go. They're kind of meant to be vague, but yeah. Though, yeah, okay, so she meets one of the members of her suicide pact. I wonder what happens to the other one. Clearly, if it didn't work, clearly she didn't die. So I wonder if she'll play a role. Yeah, okay, so that is everything that I am going to talk about for this video. Because that's really all that's interesting me. From what I can tell. Maybe there'll be shows that I didn't pick up on and they turn out to be great. As with any season, that stuff can happen. You know, you never know. And so, those are my thoughts on the upcoming fall 2015 anime season. Please feel free to leave a comment about what anime you're looking forward to, or perhaps any anime that slipped under my radar that I did not talk about in this video that I should be looking out for, or anything of the like. Until the next time I do this, or the next time you happen to watch one of my videos, because I won't be doing one of these again for like 3 months, of course, take care, and I hope you all enjoy this upcoming season.